6 years. 6 years of weekends, holidays, and every spare moment I had. 6 years of pouring my heart, my sweat, and my savings into building my dream cabin with my own two hands. And then, someone tried to take it from me. Not vandals. Not criminals. An HOA. They actually tried to steal my cabin. The one I built. On my land. With my money. Big mistake. Huge mistake. My name is Chris, and this is the story of how I built my dream cabin over 6 years, how an HOA tried to claim it as their own, and how I made absolutely sure they regretted ever crossing me. Let me take you back to where this all started. About 7 years ago, I was working this soul-crushing corporate job. 70-hour weeks, fluorescent lights, endless meetings about meetings. I was burned out, stressed, and desperate for something real. Something I could build with my hands. Something that was mine. One weekend, I was driving through the mountains about 2 hours from the city, just trying to clear my head. And I saw it. A for sale sign on this beautiful piece of land. 3 acres, mostly wooded, with a clearing that had the most incredible view of the valley below. I called the number. The price was actually reasonable. It was part of a larger rural development called Mountain Haven, about 30 properties total, spread out over a couple hundred acres. There was an HOA, but according to the paperwork it was super minimal. Just maintained the main access road and handled snow removal in winter. Dues were like $50 a month. No big deal. I bought it. Used almost all my savings as a down payment, but I bought it. And then, I started planning. See, I didn't want to just hire someone to build a cabin. I wanted to build it myself. With my own hands. Learn every skill, make every decision, create something that was truly mine. My wife, Emily, thought I was crazy at first. Chris, you've never built anything bigger than a bookshelf. Then I'll learn, I said. I'll take classes, watch videos, figure it out. This is important to me. She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled. Okay, let's do it. So I did. I took woodworking classes. Got my contractor's license just to understand building codes better. Spent months designing the cabin, making sure everything would be legal and safe. Got all my permits from the county. Did everything by the book. And then one spring weekend I broke ground. It was just me at first. Digging the foundation by hand, mixing concrete, laying the base. It was brutal. My hands were covered in blisters. My back ached every night. But it was amazing. Every shovelful of dirt, every pour of concrete, it was mine. Emily started coming out on weekends too. We'd pack lunch, work all day, and watch the sunset from what would eventually be our porch. Those were some of the best days of my life, honestly. The first year, I got the foundation and floor joists done. The second year, I framed the walls and got the roof on. Year 3 was windows, doors, and starting on the interior. Year 4 was plumbing and electrical, which I hired licensed professionals for because I'm not stupid. Year 5 was insulation, drywall, and finishing work. Year 6 was the final touches, cabinets, fixtures, the deck. Every single weekend for 6 years. Every vacation day. Every spare moment. I poured everything into that cabin. And it was beautiful. 2 bedrooms, open living area with a stone fireplace I built myself. Big windows facing the valley, a wraparound deck. Rustic but modern. Cozy but spacious. Perfect. Emily and I started spending long weekends there. Eventually, we were talking about retiring there, maybe in 10 or 15 years. It was our dream. Our future. Built with our own hands. And then, the HOA changed. For the first 5.5 years, the HOA was fine. The old board president, a retired guy named Bill, was super laid back. We'd see him occasionally, wave, chat about the weather. No issues. Then Bill moved away. And the new board got elected. The president was this woman named Victoria. Early 50s, moved to Mountain Haven from some expensive suburb, and she had ideas. Big ideas about elevating the community and maintaining standards. Within a month of taking over, she sent out new bylaws. Pages and pages of rules about everything. Approved color schemes for exterior paint. Restrictions on outbuildings. Mandatory architectural reviews for any structures. Noise ordinances. Guest limitations. It was insane. This was a rural mountain community, not a gated suburb. But here's the thing. My cabin was already built. It had been there for years. I figured I was grandfathered in, right? The bylaws couldn't apply retroactively to existing structures. Wrong. I got a letter 3 months after Victoria took over. Official HOA letterhead, very formal. Dear Mr. Brennan, it has come to our attention that the structure located on Lot 17 does not have documented HOA architectural approval on file. As per revised covenants, all structures must have board approval. Please submit detailed plans, photos, and specifications for retroactive review. Failure to comply within 30 days will result in enforcement action. I read it twice. Emily read it over my shoulder. Retroactive review? For a cabin we've been building for 6 years? I called Victoria directly. She answered in this chirpy voice that immediately set my teeth on edge. Oh, Chris. Yes, I sent that letter. It's just a formality. We're getting all our records organized. Victoria, my cabin has been here for years. I have county permits, inspections, everything's legal. Oh, I'm sure it is. This is just for our HOA records. We need to make sure everything meets our community standards. What standards? The cabin was built under the old bylaws. Her voice got a little less chirpy. The new bylaws apply to all structures, Chris. Existing and new. It's about maintaining property values for everyone. I'm not submitting my cabin for approval. It's already built and it's legal. Then you'll be in violation. And we'll have to take appropriate action. What action? That depends on the board. But violations can result in fines, liens, or even forced compliance measures. I hung up, my hands shaking with anger. Emily looked worried. What does forced compliance measures mean? I don't know. But I'm calling a lawyer. I got in touch with a property attorney named Sarah Klein. Explained the situation, sent her all my documents, permits, photos, the HOA's old and new bylaws. She called me back 2 days later. Chris, here's the situation. Your cabin is legally permitted and was built under the bylaws in effect at the time. The HOA can't retroactively apply new standards to force you to get approval for something that's already done. That's called an ex post facto action, and it's not enforceable. Relief flooded through me. So I don't have to do anything? I'd recommend sending them a formal response stating that your structure predates the new bylaws and is legally compliant with all county codes. Make it clear you're not submitting to their retroactive approval process. But no, legally you don't have to comply. I sent that letter. Certified mail, very formal. Basically said, my cabin was built legally under the bylaws in effect at the time. It's county approved and compliant. I will not be submitting to retroactive approval. This matter is closed. Victoria's response came a week later. And it was insane. Dear Mr. Brennan, your refusal to comply with HOA requirements is noted. After consultation with the board and our legal counsel, we have determined that any structure built without HOA approval is considered an unauthorized improvement to common property and subject to HOA ownership claims. Effective immediately, the structure on Lot 17 is claimed as HOA property for community use. You have 14 days to vacate and turn over all keys. I stared at the letter. Read it 3 times. My hands were shaking. Emily read it. They're claiming they own our cabin? They can't do that. They can't just claim someone's property. But there it was. In writing. The HOA was claiming that because I didn't get their approval, my cabin somehow belonged to them now. I called Sarah immediately. I was beyond angry. I was shaking with rage. Sarah, they're claiming my cabin belongs to the HOA. They want me to turn over the keys. Silence on the other end. Then, they're claiming what? I read her the letter. Chris, that's not how property law works. At all. You can't just declare ownership of someone else's building because they didn't get HOA approval. That's attempted theft. That's potentially criminal. So what do? You send them a response that makes it very clear that any attempt to claim access or damage your property will result in criminal charges and a civil lawsuit. And you document everything. Photos, videos, security cameras if you don't have them already. These people are either delusional or they're trying to intimidate you into giving up your cabin. Why would they want my cabin? Sarah paused. I don't know. But let's make sure they don't get it. I sent the response Sarah drafted. It was harsh. Basically said, your claim of ownership is legally baseless and potentially criminal. Any attempt to access or damage the property will result in criminal trespassing charges and civil action for damages. This matter is not negotiable. 2 weeks went by. Nothing. I thought maybe they'd realized how insane their claim was. Then I drove up one weekend and found Victoria and 3 other board members on my deck. Just standing there. One of them was trying to pick the lock on my front door. I jumped out of my truck. What the hell are you doing? Victoria turned, completely unfazed. Oh, Chris. We're conducting an inspection of HOA property. This isn't HOA property. This is my cabin. Get off my deck. Now. Actually, as we explained in our letter, this structure is now HOA property. We're within our rights to inspect it. The guy picking the lock said, this is a really good lock. We might need to break the door. Something snapped inside me. If you break that door, I'm calling the police and pressing charges for breaking and entering. Get my property. Victoria's smile was cold. We'll be back with proper tools. This structure will be converted to a community recreation facility by the end of the month. They left. I stood there shaking. Then I called the police. 2 deputies showed up about 30 minutes later. I explained the situation, showed them my deed, my permits, the HOA's letters. One of the deputies, an older guy named Martinez, shook his head. Sir, this is your property? Yes. Deed, permits, everything. I built it myself over 6 years. And the HOA is claiming they own it? That's what they're saying. Martinez looked at his partner. That's attempted theft of property. Possibly fraud. He turned back to me. Did they try to force entry? One of them was picking my lock when I arrived. Attempted burglary. Sir, I'd recommend filing a formal report and getting a restraining order. If they come back, call us immediately. I filed the report. Sarah filed for a temporary restraining order. Within 2 days, Victoria and the 3 board members who'd been on my property were served with orders to stay at least 500 feet away from my cabin. But it didn't stop. I got emails from other board members demanding access. I got violation notices claiming my cabin was an eyesore and needed to be removed. I got a letter saying the HOA was filing a lawsuit to establish ownership. They actually sued me. Filed a civil suit claiming that because the cabin was built without HOA approval, it reverted to HOA ownership as per their covenants. Sarah was livid. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. They're going to lose, and they're going to lose hard. The case took 3 months to get to court. During that time, I had to install security cameras around the cabin because I was terrified Victoria would try something. And I was right to be worried. The cameras caught someone we couldn't tell who trying to jimmy open a window at 2 a.m. The cameras caught someone cutting my water line. The cameras caught someone spray painting HOA property on the side of my deck. Every incident I reported to the police. Every incident was documented. Every incident added to my case. Court day finally came. County Courthouse, Civil Division. Victoria showed up with the entire HOA board and their lawyer, a guy named Preston who looked like he charged $1,000 an hour. Sarah and I sat at the defendant's table with boxes of documents. Photos of every stage of construction. Permits. County inspection records. Receipts for materials. 6 years of documentation. The judge was a woman in her 60s, Judge Ellen Crawford. She looked at the case file with this expression like she couldn't believe what she was reading. Preston presented the HOA's case. He tried to make it sound reasonable, like they were just trying to enforce community standards. He claimed that the bylaws gave the HOA authority over all structures, and that structures built without approval could be claimed for community use. He actually said that. In court. With a straight face. Judge Crawford interrupted him. "Counselor, are you arguing that an HOA can claim ownership of private property built on private land?" Preston hesitated. "Your Honor, the covenants establish that unauthorized structures." "The structure is on Mr. Brennan's deeded property, correct?" "Yes, but..." "And he has legal permits from the county?" "Yes, but the HOA bylaws." "HOA bylaws don't supersede property law, Counselor. You can't claim ownership of someone's building just because they didn't ask your permission." Preston tried again. "Your Honor, the concern is that allowing unapproved structures sets a precedent. The structure was built over 6 years under bylaws that didn't require approval. Your client is attempting to apply new rules retroactively and then claim ownership based on non-compliance with those retroactive rules. Is that accurate?" Preston went pale. The board believed. What the board believed is irrelevant. What matters is what the law says. Then it was Sarah's turn. She stood up, calm and professional. "Your Honor, my client bought land, obtained proper permits, and spent 6 years legally building a cabin. The HOA, under new leadership, created new bylaws and is attempting to steal his property. Not fine him. Not restrict him. Steal his property. They've trespassed, attempted forced entry, vandalized his cabin, and filed this frivolous lawsuit." She presented all the evidence. The photos of construction over 6 years. The permits. The county inspection approvals. The threatening letters from the HOA. The police reports about trespassing and vandalism. The security camera footage. Judge Crawford watched the footage of someone spray painting HOA property on my deck. Her expression darkened. "Mrs. Klein, are you alleging that the HOA was responsible for this vandalism?" "I'm alleging that after my client refused to surrender his property, the HOA engaged in harassment and property damage. We have multiple police reports documenting incidents." The judge looked at Victoria. "Mrs. Ashford, is it? You're the HOA president." Victoria stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "Did you personally attempt to enter Mr. Brennan's cabin without permission?" "We were conducting an inspection of what we believed to be HOA property." "Did Mr. Brennan give you permission?" "No, but we believed." "You believed you could break into someone's private property based on a bylaw you created?" Victoria's confidence was cracking. "We were trying to enforce community standards." "By stealing someone's cabin?" The judge's voice was sharp. "That's what this is, Mrs. Ashford. You created new rules, applied them retroactively, and when Mr. Brennan refused to comply, you attempted to claim his 6-year construction project as your own. That's not enforcement. That's theft." She looked at Preston. "Counselor, I've heard enough. This case is dismissed with prejudice. The HOA has no claim whatsoever to Mr. Brennan's cabin. Furthermore, I'm issuing a permanent injunction prohibiting the HOA from any further interference with Mr. Brennan's property. I'm also awarding Mr. Brennan his full legal fees and damages for the harassment and vandalism he's endured." She turned to Victoria. "Mrs. Ashford, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of possible criminal charges including attempted theft, trespassing, and vandalism. You should consult with a criminal attorney." She banged her gavel. "We're done." The courtroom was dead silent. Victoria looked like she'd been slapped. Preston was already packing his briefcase, clearly wanting to get as far from this case as possible. Outside, Emily hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "It's over. It's finally over." Sarah shook my hand. "Congratulations. That was one of the most satisfying wins I've ever had." "And that referral to the DA? That's huge." Victoria could face actual criminal charges. But the story doesn't end there. It gets better. 2 weeks after the judgment, I got a call from another Mountain Haven property owner named David. He asked if we could meet for coffee. We met at a diner halfway between the city and Mountain Haven. David looked stressed. "Chris, I heard about your case. The whole community heard about it. And a bunch of us want to do something about Victoria and this board. They've been harassing everyone with these ridiculous bylaws. But after what happened with you, we realized it's not just annoying. It's dangerous." What are you thinking? We're organizing a recall vote. 22 property owners have already signed a petition. We need 25 to force a special election. Will you sign? I signed on the spot. Absolutely. Within a month, we had 30 signatures. The recall election was scheduled. Victoria and her entire board tried to fight it, claiming the recall wasn't valid, but the county overruled them. Election day came. Out of 40 registered property owners in Mountain Haven, 38 voted. The result? Victoria and her board were removed with a 92% vote against them. A new board was elected. David became president. Their first act? Rescinding all of Victoria's new bylaws and reverting to the original minimal rules that everyone had been happy with. Their second act? Sending me a formal letter of apology on behalf of the HOA. As for Victoria, the DA did investigate. She ended up pleading guilty to criminal trespassing and vandalism, got a year of probation, community service, and had to pay restitution for the damage to my cabin. Last I heard, she moved away from Mountain Haven. Couldn't handle being in a community where everyone knew what she tried to do. My cabin? It's perfect. Emily and I spend every weekend there now. We've added solar panels, expanded the deck, built a workshop. It's become everything we dreamed it would be. And every time I sit on that deck, looking out at the valley, I think about those 6 years of building. Every blister, every sore muscle, every moment of doubt. And I think about how someone tried to take it from me. And I smile. Because they didn't just lose. They lost everything. Their positions, their reputations, their freedom. You don't mess with something someone built with their own hands over 6 years. You don't try to steal someone's dream. Here's what I learned from all this. When you create something real, something meaningful, there will always be people who want to take it. Sometimes it's out of greed. Sometimes it's out of spite. Sometimes it's just because they can't stand seeing someone achieve something they didn't. But here's the thing. When you've put your blood, sweat, and tears into something, when you've built it legally and ethically and with your own hands, you have every right to defend it. Know your rights. Document everything. Don't be afraid to fight back. And never, ever let someone convince you that their made-up rules trump your legal ownership. That cabin represents 6 years of my life. 6 years of learning, building, creating. And no HOA, no matter how delusional, was going to take that from me. So if you're building something, whether it's a cabin, a business, a dream, remember this. Build it right. Build it legal. Document everything. And when someone tries to take it, fight back with everything you've got. Because sometimes, the people who try to steal your dreams end up losing everything. Thanks for listening. This is Chris signing off from my cabin. The one I built. The one I own. The one the HOA will never ever touch again. And honestly, that feels pretty damn good.